NFL Week 11, and I don't think Ron or I are ready for it. So we are here to talk about last week, this coming week, viewer Q&A, and whatever else we can come up with. It's been a very interesting period of time, to say the least. How's it going, Ron?
Well, I made it back home. That's good news. Whirlwind trip, but last week felt pretty prepared in the NFL. Went very well, kind of low key, very well. Those who listen to the Tuesday show know what we did in terms of live betting on the Friday show as well. So maybe we'll come up with something this week. I don't know. I'm hopelessly behind. I need those viewer questions.
I'm hopelessly behind. Also, it's getting frustrating. Is it? A lot of your time has been spent with the college, though. Are you looking forward to the winding down of college, or are you disappointed that it's come and gone? How are you reconciling NFL and college?
Well, by the time the bowl season rolls around, I am tired of college because it's a lot of work each and every week to keep track of 81 teams very, very closely and 133 overall. It's a lot of work, and trying to balance working on player proposition plays and mixing time between college and NFL and all the other stuff that goes on that has nothing to do with football. It's really about time management, getting the most out of it. And again, for me, being methodical, not rushing things. And we come to the Thanksgiving holiday, we come to Christmas and other holidays in December, and it becomes a balancing act. And I do get fatigued at that particular point. Last week, I had a lot of good preparation going in. So I just had extra time last week, but this week, not at all.
Yeah, last week I was all excited about the NCAA football, been on quite a run, started up the week very nicely, and then Saturday was just a no fun day, and did end up for the week like a quarter of a unit or something, but I was up 10% at one point. So pissed a lot of it back and finished okay. Little disappointing there, but I can't keep up with all this stuff anymore. It's driving me nuts. It's frustrating. And looking back at last week, I'm just getting. I think I have to actually process some thinking, and I know that you've done some thinking yourself. I don't know that your betting has changed any, but you're at least contemplating options. And I'm just aggravated at myself because the previous week I came in and I said, I turned 3 losers into winners by teasing them. Now, last week I did end up betting most of mine immediately straight up because they were not good teaser situations anyway. So, but there were games in particular that I looked at and I'm like, ugh. And I actually just bet them and got them out of the way just because I knew they weren't going to really slide into teaser range and they were going to just torture me all week. But in the back of my mind, I knew I was going to have regret, and I did. I mean, I did not want to bet the Jets. I did not want. I wasn't wild about Atlanta. And what was the other game that was not wild about? The Green Bay. Oh God, I've lost 2 weeks in a row, taking 3.5, and Pittsburgh wins by 4. Now, I did have some teasers to buy back half of the Atlanta and some of the other stuff, but I feel like I know what's going on, and I know my model, and I know the variances involved. And these games, I don't think that people realize how many of these games are just coin flips. I mean, when you really look at it, we had 6 games where they kicked a field goal to win the game at the end. 6. I mean, these games are just so, marginally dependent on just luck or something that nobody can handicap. And with that in mind, all the more reason to be using teasers. And this is, to make a long story short, I'm getting pissed because I actually let the dumb shits that complain about all the teasers that I do actually got in my head. And that stops now, because I realized that, what the fuck am I doing? I'm taking shit from people in comments and on Twitter about how often I'm teasing. I have 75 plays this year at 35.1% ROI. I don't fucking give a shit what any of these people had to say about what you're supposed to do with teasers and what you're not supposed to do with teasers. I know what I'm doing with teasers. So I'm pissed at myself for being stupid and not following my gut and doing more teasers with teams that I had no confidence in. Well, no, I'm not going to say no confidence. I knew those games were going to be coin flips. Why would anybody want to get involved in those games? I'm going to ask you, Ron, why do you want to get involved in a game that you know is a coin flip? You know for a fact that Jets game was going to go like it went. You knew that Atlanta game was going to go like it went. Am I wrong? There are certain games every week that are going to be so close. Why the hell aren't you doing a teaser on it?
I don't know where to begin, Chris. You got a lot off your chest there. But I can tell you, as an underdog bettor, I love coin flip games.
Yeah.
I mean, why would I change anything when I can get 3 points in a toss-up game? It plays exactly to who I am as a handicapper, and I've been doing it for 30, 40 years. So that's exactly the kind of games that I want. If I can get like Minnesota, New Orleans, for example, why do I even want to get involved in that game? Do I even know who's going to win? But you're giving me Minnesota +3 against Dennis Allen. There's no choice in terms of that game. I think I went on air on Friday and I said, my name is Ron and I like Arizona against Atlanta. The more I thought about that game, and I had Friday and Saturday to think about it, it was a coin flip game in favor of Arizona to me. Why would a passive defense with Atlanta be favored over anybody in the NFL other than maybe the New York Giants at this particular point? I live bet the Raiders against the Jets, as you know, on Tuesday, in front of the audience, and people were asking me about it and so on, because my power ratings did not support the New York Jets as a road favorite against a team with a new interim coach bump. There's nothing about Zach Wilson that tells me I should be betting him as a road favorite. So that's my response to what you said. I understand your frustration right now because you're not finding the exact winners. Although in the morning on Sunday, I thought you were turning the corner. There were a lot of things that I thought you had right. And then, things kind of changed after that. But I just think if you look at toss-up games, maybe people need to take a closer look at ugly dogs, because there's no reason why in toss-up games you should be ignoring 3, 4, 5, 6 points.
Oh, I'm fully on board on that. You definitely want to be in a position of taking points. So there's just a difference when you're showing that you're landing on these small favorites, even sub 3-point dogs. I think I told even those home underdogs, Ron. I mentioned it last week. Everybody thinks a home underdog of +3 is some great bet. It's 42% since 2020. That's extreme. That's an extreme result. It's bad. So
yeah, I think you can never ignore matchup analysis. Are you having a team with fundamentally average or below average defense be the home underdog or be the road favorite? What's the situation going on? How the line of scrimmage is going to play out? What happened last week in terms of a close game, an overtime win, a short week, a long week. One of the mistakes, the only loss I had last week is I did take Jacksonville when the line flirted with 3.5 against San Francisco. This was not a play against San Francisco. I want to emphasize I made a lot of plays against San Francisco that were winners recently. This was a play on Jacksonville that I happened to lose because I thought Jacksonville was not getting enough credit, and it turns out that I was wrong. No big deal. So you're going to be wrong 45% of the time, no problem. But I thought Jacksonville plus 3.5 was a value play, and it didn't work out. But those are the kinds of things I'm looking for in terms of what dogs I'm playing.
I mean, when I look at last week, there was no way in hell I was playing Carolina plus 3.5. Sure, they would have covered, but everything that I did carried value into other plays. And that's what gave me the extra value with Atlanta. So, I had Carolina teased in with Atlanta, so that got me back some of my Atlanta straight betting. I got some help with the Colts, even though I didn't need it. I got some hope with Minnesota, even though I didn't need it. I think I have a Green Bay in there someplace, but I just look and I really wanted to tease the Jets, and I worried about. That's the problem when in my position, if I'm sharing picks or sharing information, I have to, open myself up to criticism. So, and one of the things I do like about sharing picks and stuff is the accountability. So this is a situation where accountability is clashing with like instinct, or for lack of a better word, of things that I want to do, if that makes any sense. There's some stuff that I want to do lately that I'm having a hard, it's a hard thing to defend, if that makes any sense. You ever feel that way?
I'm not sure about how to respond to that. So I just think if you're looking to tease because you're not comfortable with your model says something, so you should play it, but you're uncomfortable and you're looking to tease, I would flip it the other way. If you're uncomfortable, for example, with one of the favorites and you want to get them from, to a certain amount, want to tease them down or something like that, I always flip it and say, well, if you're uncomfortable with the favorite, why aren't you first looking at the dog? Why aren't you wanting them at 6.5 or 7 or so on? In an autopsy of last week, I didn't take Washington against Seattle. I knew Seattle's flaws, but I just didn't see enough line value to take Washington. And I heard what you said. I believe what you said. 2 games. I don't remember if you had Cleveland or if you had Houston against Baltimore and Cincinnati, respectively. But I understood why one would take Cleveland and Houston. I laid off those games because I didn't like getting in front of what Cincinnati and Baltimore were accomplishing in the 2 or 3 weeks prior to those games. Now, Cincinnati showed flaws on defense against Houston. I saw that plainly. Baltimore just flat out continues its incredible trend of being a live bet against them in the second half, because Baltimore has so many coaching flaws. I can't go that route anymore.
Yeah. And, don't misunderstand. I had a winning week last week. What frustrates me is that if I had teased, the only games I lost would have won by teaser. So think about that. Yeah. Every game I would have won. So
I think you're getting close. Let's put it that way. In the game results that happened last week, and I thought about this especially after the morning games, I said, Cris is getting close. I mentioned a few weeks back, you kind of know when you're seeing the ball clearly, to use a baseball term, or the hole is big with a golf term and stuff like that. And it took me to week 5. And at week 5, before we went in, I saw the ball clearly. I think it's getting closer for you. I really do. In our discussions and in the results last week, I think you're very, very close to pulling off one of these fantastic weeks.
Oh yeah, but that's why I'm frustrated about last week. Is it should have been a home run, and it was just a moderate success, and I wasn't even happy. I wasn't happy in the least, even though it was a profitable day. Um, I just wanted to do things differently, and I didn't. And
Yeah,
um,
well,
it's any other takeaways from last week? I wish we could move on.
yeah.
It's
Last autopsy for me last week. There were some games: Carolina, Chicago, Indy, New England, Giants, Dallas. That were such stay away from games from me. I did not even want to revisit it a second or third time. What strayed me off Green Bay is the fact that if you have TJ Watt on one side of the field and Jordan Love on the other, it's a mismatch. I wasn't going to ever lay Pittsburgh in that situation, but I think the Jordan Love experiment is nearly over against teams that have crafty defenses. So I stayed away. I'm happy with most of the games I stayed away from. I'm happy to have discovered Arizona against Atlanta, but you take those kind of games against defenses that are vulnerable. Atlanta just doesn't have enough defense to be competitive. And they're searching, so I'm looking for those kinds of things. I like my take and mini against New Orleans. So the autopsy was pretty good, kind of a low key week, but it worked out.
I forgot. Well, my read. I think I mentioned it on one of the two shows. Uh, I'll be interested to see what happens with Seattle, which was my hint that I didn't have a lot of confidence in them. Uh, I know I said it someplace that there's there's something up with Seattle, and I came very close to. I would have definitely taken Washington at 7.
Yeah,
I,
that was my dividing line too. And in that game, it could have very easily ended 7. There were a couple of late conversions that got Washington into the position to have that touchdown at the end of the game. That game probably should have been a 7-point game.
I was. I have to admit, it's the first time I was alarmed with the Lions. That defense was just
Mm-hmm.
uh, inexcusable. You can't have a defense like that. You can't. I don't. I know Herbert, and Herbert played a great game by
Yeah.
anybody's measure. I heard from multiple areas that was his best game of the season. That's no excuse. That defense was a shit show, and the only reason Campbell went for it on that 4th down, which nobody else ever would have. In fact, those analytics programs said you kicked the field goal. They never say kick the field goal. So, and he went for it because he knew they were never going to stop him. So that's a big concern as a Lions fan going forward. Did you watch that game?
I did not watch that game. I was in transit. I missed everything on Sunday. But I will say this. It can't be understated enough how wasteful the talent on the LA Chargers is with Staley as coach. I mean, we're sitting on a team that probably should have been in the playoffs 8 of the last 9 years and probably should be thought of as one of the 5 best teams in the NFL. And they couldn't do anything defensively in this game. And this isn't the first game they couldn't do anything defensively. I know you're hard on Detroit. You should be concerned a little bit on that defense, but it's the Chargers that are wasting away everything.
To their credit, I think the Chargers are improving, and they could still make a nice run here. I mean, the Lions aren't garbage. By any means. And the Chargers showed up. They could have folded like a paper napkin. They were down 14. Things were not going their way. And there was a point where I knew it. I mean, you knew the Chargers were going to tie it up, and you knew it was going to be a stressful situation. And I was legitimately worried that if the Lions didn't make that field goal, that changes the whole course of a season, frankly.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if you made it, but when I double made the Detroit Lions to win the division, Minnesota was winless at the time. And their only competition was a Green Bay team that I didn't like. And obviously Chicago was out of the picture too. So I love that Detroit play. Now you got a Detroit win that you just, referenced that was an important win for them because Minnesota has turned things around. They've definitely turned things around. They have the spirit. They have a completely different type of attack you have to defend against. People that were defending against old Minnesota tape, you better throw that out because now they have a mobile quarterback who uses his legs to extend drives and to win games. So that was an important win for the Lions. You have some other divisions that are a mess. I know we could spend some time about Baltimore putting everybody else back into the divisional race.
Just
that
amazing.
Race is crazy. And what about New Orleans putting everybody back in that divisional race? I would make Tampa the favorite in that race just because I don't trust New Orleans.
Oh, God. What are they? Haven't they played 10 games? It's 5-5. You know what? And think I was thinking about this and I laughed. We were concerned because that division had such an easy schedule that somebody had the potential to get the 1 seed out of there just because they play nobody. And no, you don't have anybody over 500 with that cheesy schedule. I mean, it's just hilarious.
Yeah. The other side of the cheesy schedule, the one that we talked about, Indianapolis having an easy schedule and Houston having an easy schedule, their win total is more than what their roster says it should be. Houston and Indianapolis in another division at the beginning of the year would have been programmed for 4 wins probably the whole year at most. And now they look like they're both going to go over their seasonal win totals. But in Atlanta, Carolina, New Orleans, Tampa, certainly Atlanta, Carolina, and New Orleans, they are vastly underachieving even with a soft schedule.
These fourth quarter meltdowns by Baltimore are just unbelievable. I mean, it's you can't. I mean, you can't be a great head coach when you allow that to happen multiple seasons in a row. You just that comes down to head coaching. It's inexcusable. That's why he's not an elite coach. I've had people argue and laugh at me, oh, how can you say he's not? They're always good. Well, they'd be better with somebody else. So,
yeah, I have drummed that into everybody's head for more years than you can imagine. I mean, he was gifted with Ozzie Newsome as a GM and how they make their moves and their roster and so on. I have an article that'll come out later this afternoon. It's all about coaches, and it talks about Baltimore's defensive coordinator, who will probably be made the scapegoat for all this. But you're not talking about fourth quarter meltdowns in a traditional sense. You're talking about double-digit leads.
Yeah.
The first 6 games they gave up double-digit leads in 2022, and they're well on their way to giving up more double-digit leads. I mean, this team continually leads and wins the first half by more than 7 points.
These Raiders at 5-5 is just amazing. And I can't believe my alternate wins total that I paid an arm and a leg for with the Broncos is actually live. My over 6.5. I actually placed that bet with somebody else and on credit, and I said, I should just pay for that now. Like 3 weeks ago, I told him that, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it."
Yeah, well, we talked about this at the end of the Friday show with Ted. I said the most curious thing is how Denver would react after the bye week. And even though they're not perfect, and Russell Wilson still insists on taking sacks and moving them out of field goal range, I think that they could end up second in the division, even though they're behind the Raiders, because at some point the interim coach spike will go away with the Raiders. But it was definitely clearly evident the first 2 weeks.
So Baltimore basically There's Pittsburgh's in the best position at this point for the division because every team in that division except them has 2 losses and they don't have any.
Yeah.
Obviously, Cincinnati's toast if they lose this week against Baltimore, because that'll cost them 2 games instead of 1 because they'll be 2-0 against Cincinnati.
Good point.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. That Minnesota just won't go away. I mean, I think that they're technically drawing live. I don't know what it is, but what's up with these Cowboys? Why do I feel like they're going to be sneaky on this back end of the season? We need to look at them.
Let's start with Thursday. You have 2 teams, Cincinnati and Baltimore, that both lost on the last second kicks. Cincinnati probably didn't deserve to win the game anyway, but they had the lead and they gave it, they fought back, they had the lead, and then they gave it up. And Baltimore, we know about Baltimore. So how do these teams come back after tasting defeat on the very last play of the game in just 2 days?
Well, I believe, are we looking at 11 primetime games in a row that have gone under now?
Yeah, it's a crazy stat, huh?
I had Denver under last night, and then I also teased the over. Here's a goofy thing I'll tell everybody about. What the hell?
I thought you weren't supposed to tease over-unders. You told me that.
Well, here's the situation. And you'll see this every now and then. Some of these sports books, they're starting to put up goofy lines with goofy money lines. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they don't always correlate money lines and actual spread lines.
No, they're putting goofy point spreads or totals with a goofy money line attached to it. So yesterday they had 46 over 126 instead of the 47 or 47 and a half it was supposed to be.
Yeah, in the old days, 47 used to be a key number, but nowadays with analytics and you're going for it at weird times, it's hard to find real, in my opinion, it's hard to find real key numbers for totals.
But here's the thing when you see that. When they have those lines like that, that's their teaser line too. So if they're 2 points off and they play games with that, well, you just got yourself 2 extra points on a teaser.
No, that strategy for straight bets has been an exceptional strategy for books that are hanging weird lines for a long time. And that's a good point you just made about if they're going to do it with teases, with totals. I don't know how many times I've seen what you said, a 126.
Well, I'm starting to see it more often, and you even get straight point spreads the same way.
Yeah.
My immediate instinct is to find, okay, how can I utilize that? Because if it's off, it has to skew some other bet that you can make in your favor or to your benefit. So, I took I had overbought the under 48, knowing that it was going to come down. It didn't come down as much as I thought it would because a notable handicapper released the over and drove it back up, but it still went down afterward. Without that, it would have, that line would have gone off at 46 and a half at game time instead of 47. It did go off. But I teased the other direction and, carried those teasers through. So I was happy about that. Must win game for both teams here. It should be a great game. I'm kind of surprised that the line is over 3.5, over 3. It seems to be sinking a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually set it at 4.
Yeah, it's holding firm. It's sinking a little bit. I'm kind of surprised that the first two games Sunday are holding 3.5.
You have is that Cleveland at 3.5 and Houston at 3.5?
Uh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that Arizona deserves to be just 3.5 based on one Kyler Murray performance. It was just, again, they played against an Atlanta defense. This is a different defense. What's going on in Houston, and part of my Wager Talk article that'll come out is going to talk about Coach of the Year odds. And what D'Amico Ryans is doing is just fantastic.
How do you like this? This Cleveland line is 3.5 and 4.5 now.
Okay.
So it's 3.5, 4. It's mainly 4, but you've got places going up. You got places going down. Where's it going to go, Ron?
I think the 3.5, I think it'll go to 4.
What is it for?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you'll see 3.5s. Well, now, let me preface that we don't know about Watson's health. So part of that is in the equation. So that's a tough game to say. I think in general, if you knew Watson was 100% and everybody's sneaky with their injury reports, they're not going to release anything until Friday afternoon when they go with the doubtful, questionable, and out. They're required by the NFL 48 hours in advance to put all that stuff out. Everything else is just fake news between now and Friday afternoon.
What do you think? So you think that line belongs at 4? And what do you think the
Yes,
Houston line belongs?
I would, this is a hard one because of the Kyler Murray situation. I'm basing it on one game. Where do I think it belongs? It belongs at as much as 5, to be honest. But that's one of those that I don't place any greater weight in where I'm setting it because I essentially have a one game sample size.
So does the fact that multiple line services were tripping over themselves to release in Arizona yesterday?
Yeah, what have you done for me lately? Are we in the overreaction business, or is that something that we should adjust their power number because they're a different team now? I don't know. It's still the same defense that Arizona's had for the first 7, 8 games, and it's not really that good. It's just think about this. Atlanta played Arizona, okay, last week. Arizona allows 70% exact completions coming into the game. Atlanta ran the ball 44 times and passed the ball 21 times.
So you're saying they've got really great coaching there?
Yes, I'm saying that they have great coaching. Whatever Atlanta's game plan was, it once again made me cash a ticket. Let's put it that way. I want Dennis Allen and I want the coach of Atlanta, Arthur Smith, to coach as long as they possibly can.
Somebody in the audience sent me their power ratings, and I kind of laughed at them at first.
Okay.
And I haven't been able to get back to them, but they're not as crazy as I thought.
Okay.
I need to take a closer look at mine, but compare them. But there's been some changes happening, and it's just kind of humorous where teams are sitting right now. It's just an odd season. The Chargers they put them out there at over a field goal, and that was bet down to 3.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat where we would have the Chargers on our power ratings, and the person who put it in the chat said they had it at 1.5. I actually put the Charger line at exactly 3, according to my power ratings.
I have my parallel systems. One had it 1.92. The other one has it at 3.12.
So there's nothing unrealistic about where the line is. So once there's nothing unrealistic about the line, Then you go to the next step, and that's matchup analysis. How do these teams match up? Who's going to win the line of scrimmage, so on and so forth. I haven't gotten to that point in my analysis yet because I'm behind this week, but I'll get there before Friday.
Oh boy, you know what? You look at that Giants Washington line and you say, how, what would it take you to lay 10 points with Washington against the Giants?
Yeah. I mean, nothing screams stay away than this game because I already had downgraded the New York Giants to a level of an expansion team. And even then, I can't justify Washington being a 10-point favorite in this game. But I don't want to lay it, and I don't want to take it.
I'm just so grateful for weeks like this where the model says you can leave this game alone. So
yeah,
thankfully I don't have to be involved.
Yeah, it'll be a trendy survivor pick for people.
What the hell's wrong with the Titans? I mean, Derrick Henry literally, running for nothing, and Levis, doing nothing. I mean, what's going on there? I missed everything involved with that game, but everything I saw was not bad. It was like really pathetic. What do you know?
I think Tennessee is another team that's behind the eight ball in terms of how they approach modern day offenses. They want to ride the Derrick Henry train, but they can't do that. And now they have in my opinion, a fairly raw rookie in Will Levis, who's learning the NFL. He made some nice throws the first couple of weeks, but I still think he's going to be in a situation where they're playing a team like Jacksonville. He's going to be throwing into coverage a little too much for my liking in this kind of game because Tennessee likes to throw on obvious throwing downs. To my knowledge, Tennessee is not one that mixes up their run-pass balance enough to be tricky or crafty in terms of offense. So if they have Will Levis throwing on obvious third downs, I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think that's a recipe for him getting sacked or thinking he has something, but he doesn't have something because he has so limited NFL experience.
What do you think about Henry? Is he toast?
I think he gets better. He generally gets better with more carries as the season goes on. But I do think this is his last year in Tennessee. I think they're going to turn the corner on that salary and go another direction. And where he lands, that'll be interesting, what team he lands with. Before I forget, I want to make one notice. I believe this is true on the New York Giant Washington game and this Tennessee Jacksonville game. You have a road team playing their third straight road game. And I know there's all kinds of situations about when to play them and when not to play them and stuff like that. But before I get into that, because I haven't delved deeper into that this week, again, I'm behind. I will say in both instances, the New York Giants and Tennessee, you have teams on their third straight road game with very low morale. And I think you have to factor that in. What's exciting about the New York Giants from a chemistry standpoint, or from Tennessee from a chemistry standpoint, heading into their third straight road game?
I was going to be taking notice of tired teams here later on in the season.
Mm-hmm.
One of our listeners actually reminded me about that this past week. Week 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be their third straight game. And you think there's and who did you think the other one was?
I think the other one is New York Giants.
Tennessee. Oh yeah, Tennessee and the Giants. Wow.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a negative over time. People think it is. But when you have teams that are so downtrodden right now, how do you get excited about playing them? They pack their bags 3 weeks in a row and they have no idea what they're doing.
That reminds me, we should revisit what you and I chatted about on Thursday when on our schedule analysis. We came up with some interesting observations that we don't need to think about this week, but we should get back to that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that for this week. I don't want to tease the audience about it, but because there were so many teams that we thought would be interesting to look at down the stretch for seeding, and they all lost this past week, we probably should revisit it a little bit later because the division races are just getting too tight. I have a line. Did I see Miami 12 over Vegas? And I'm
It's 11 and
wondering,
a half to
11 and a
13.
half, 12. So I am way off on this line. Curious about what you have.
Why? What do you have the line?
Other line 7.5.
So you've been hitting the cannabis stores.
Yeah. Well, according to your numbers, that's possibly true. But Miami does not yet have a shutdown defense. Where do you have Miami rated defensively? Middle of the pack?
For defense?
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, they're middle lower.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think teams with that kind of defense, I understand Miami's offense is incredible. They're off rest. I'm not sure being off rest was that important for Miami, other than the fact that they traveled a long, long distance. So they come from Germany. That's fine. But player wise, they didn't really need the rest.
They're
Backdoor cover is in play.
They've been improving defensively. They're the fourth most improving defense over the last 5 weeks. But there's a little asterisk with that. They were such hot garbage at one point that they had nowhere to go but up. So those are some of the things you have to consider.
Yeah, I want to make it known that just because I'm off on the line doesn't mean that I'm going to be on Vegas. In fact, Miami this year, this is a rare year for Miami. 4-0 straight up and against the spread as a home favorite. And this is one of the worst home favorite teams before there was a situation that Mike McDaniel took over as coach. I mean, this was a horrible home favorite team in the Miami atmosphere, the home field, that whole dynamic. They were not a good home favorite. So they're building something in Miami. Obviously, they're an incredible offensive team. I think to answer that question, my first reaction is this will be a stay away game. I get concerned. We had this conversation, Cris, before. When my line is that far off, I get concerned that I'm missing something as opposed to somebody else missing something.
Oh, you're missing something.
Yeah. So the interim coach bump was nice with Vegas for 2 home weeks. They could really get into that and so on. This is going to be more of a defensive challenge for Vegas. This is going to be a heavy defensive challenge for Vegas.
Yeah, you know what? They're going to be gasping on fumes by the end of that game.
Yeah. So I'm not laying 11.5. It's too far off my line, but I'm not taking Vegas. I'm going to try process of elimination. And this is the first run through for me. So I appreciate this conversation. But I could see a number of games that won't make my slate this week.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of grief in the peanut gallery. We're always very polite with you, Ron, but
yeah, I love it.
you need to be punished for that.
For that line?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Okay, I'm having a fun season, so I could take it.
You know what? Actually, my number's pretty close. Is not. You know what? I confused that line with some other games. I'm pretty much on market with mine. That's unusual. The Bears and the Lions. That seems about right. If Fields is in, that line should come down.
Yeah, a hard line for me to set because of the quarterback situation with Chicago. I believe the line is correct. I believe Detroit, will ramp up their defensive effort. Teams generally, when they give up that kind of points and they're not expected to give that many points, or they had higher expectations, they pay a lot of attention to the defense. I think you'll see a renewed effort by Detroit defensively in this game.
Yeah, but if Fields plays, he's going to have a little bit more success. They don't defend running quarterbacks well.
No comment from me on the Miami Vegas question that you just posted. Does the under make sense? Let me digest the game. Let me revisit that for Friday. I have a feeling that Miami's going to put up a lot of points in this game.
What's that team total you asked? It is 30 and a half.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yep. We give the good and we give the bad. The number one declining defense in the NFL is?
Ooh.
What are you, an owl? Come on, make your guess.
I don't know. There are a lot of declining defense. If you're going to the next game, if you're going to tell me Carolina is the number one defensive.
No, the Lions are the last. They've lost the most value defensively over the last 5 weeks. So very disappointing. Dallas and Panthers. What a shit show that is. The play calling duty is going to be shifted again. You got to feel sorry for this Bryce Young guy. He couldn't possibly succeed in the situation he's in.
Yeah. Well, that's why under 8 wins was a very generous line placed by one of the Vegas sports books. So minus 120, I think it was. So it was practically a regular Carolina under 8 wins. They just don't have the roster yet. In this particular game, what I'm going to be looking at is not that Dallas will have a letdown or look ahead, but how much of a letdown or look ahead this will be. This is a road game coming off a divisional game. Dallas has had a couple of tough games in a row, Philadelphia and the New York Giants. They have Washington the following week, which is a divisional game. I do not like this spot for the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, I wouldn't be playing them to cover for sure. I think they win that game, but I think it's going to be as you kind of inferred. I think it's not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah. The question I have is, will I be playing Carolina? Because as of this speaking engagement that we're having right now, I'm possibly looking at Carolina.
Oh. Okay. San Francisco, Jesus.
Yeah, they've vaulted into my number one power ranking area. They unseated Baltimore after their performance.
Yep. The same on mine, and I thought it was really humorous. They had the mics on the players, and the Jacksonville just didn't have their shit together, so the San Francisco player makes some sort of a comment along the lines of, "Boy, you guys really don't know what the fuck you're doing, do you?" And he's like, "No." It's just hilarious.
Yeah. I have no idea what to do with this game as of right now, the San Francisco Tampa. I mean, I give Baker Mayfield a lot of credit. I think he's under the radar. You know, he's not making these comments left, right, and center, whatever, and he's playing pretty good ball for this team.
I think they win that game pretty easily. I'm surprised the line is as low as it is. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I have it set correctly. I don't want to get in the way of San Francisco, but I also want to acknowledge that Tampa is doing very well this year for what they have.
They are. I agree. I think this one's going to be a doozy. Seattle and the Rams.
You're talking about important games. You were talking about Cincy, Baltimore before. This is an incredibly important game for Seattle. I wouldn't put in ink that they're making the playoffs. What are they? They're still tied for the lead or something like that.
They're 6-2 or
6-3.
6-3. Let me look.
Yeah. No, I believe they're tied with San Francisco for the lead, but they own a
6-3.
loss already against the Rams. They still have at least one game coming against San Francisco, if not two. I don't remember exactly, but I will tell you they still have San Francisco twice. Look at Seattle's next 4 games: at the Rams, San Francisco, at Dallas, at San Francisco, then Philadelphia. The
Ugh.
next 5 games. If you had a yes/no to make the playoffs for Seattle, there might be some value at no, even though somebody has to unseat them, and that's hard to find necessarily. If you have Dallas and, like we live bet last week, Minnesota to be in the playoffs, who's the team that could unseat Seattle to make the playoffs?
So what do you make that Seahawk yes/no playoffs line?
I would guess that the no would be plus 150.
God, I mean, you are just, what are you on lately?
What is it?
I mean, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll give you plus 200. How about that?
So the no is like plus 300?
I'll give you plus 200 so I can take the plus 300.
So based on what we've said, and we haven't done anything yet, and I didn't promise any live bets on this show, but do you think there's more than a 1 in 4 chance that they miss the playoffs?
I just bet it plus 300. I think it's ridiculous.
We are keeping a tremendous streak alive on this show for live betting.
Well, I don't know, plus 150. Jesus.
Well, okay, so what do you think the odds should be?
Like plus 200?
Wait a second. So what do you think the odds should be at this point?
I think plus 300 is way too high.
Okay.
I would have guessed. Not much higher than you, frankly.
Yeah. So before
but at least I'm honest about it.
My comments, I'm correct. The line should be probably around plus 150. So if you bet it plus 300, if you think that, what does that mean? 2 out of 5 times you have to be correct. So let's say you put $100 up 2 out of 5 times, and you get plus 300, and then you lose the other ones. So you have a 60% return on investment. That's math at plus 300. That's my informal analysis based on 5 minutes of conversation. You just made a play that has a 60% return on investment.
Well, I think you were interrupted in that who's going to take their place. We already know Minnesota's already in there.
Yeah.
So
we bet that. But the Rams would be 2-0 against Seattle, so they would become a factor.
Yeah, but they're 3-6.
But they'd only be 1 game behind Seattle if they won. And then again, Seattle has Philly, San Francisco coming up.
There's got to be somebody else. Oh my God. It's like,
well, I guess you could sneak in a Tampa, New Orleans if, at 9-8, if somehow both of those teams ended up with a winning record. That would be hard. It's tough. That's the danger. Who do we sneak in? We can't sneak in Green Bay or Chicago. You can't sneak in Washington or the Giants at this point. The thing of it is, Seattle could end up, I think Seattle's ceiling is 9-8 right now.
Yeah. Washington has a chance.
Yeah, but they don't own the head-to-head against Seattle based on last week.
I mean, if you're not a believer in they play the Rams and the Jets, and those are going to be short line games. They play Dallas the final game of the season, and Dallas could be slotted by the final week of the season.
Excellent point on Dallas. They will rest their starters.
So believe it or not, no, Washington's games are tough though, but it's not completely out of the question.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Ron Rivera at this point. I think he's a lame duck coach.
No, I don't think that they can make it either. It's just you can't say they won't be there for sure.
Yeah, I don't think Seattle is playoff worthy at this point, but finding a seventh team in this league is going to be hard, huh?
How do these Rams go?
I'm trying to see if Seattle has any bad loss to a team in a tiebreaker situation other than the Rams.
Boy, these Rams have a really, really good shot. You're right. If the Rams win this week, they could pass Seattle.
Yeah, they'd be 2-0 in head-to-head.
Right. And then they go to Arizona. They can win that game. They get Cleveland at home. That's going to be difficult. Then they've got to go to Baltimore. But then they get Washington at home, New Orleans, Giants, and then San Francisco, the final game of the season. San Francisco may be slotted.
I think we're talking about the Rams as having the best opportunity.
Oh, what are those? What are their lines? Rams to make the playoffs. Holy shit. What would you make that?
The Rams?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really a top of my head. I'd probably make it like 5 or 6 to 1.
7-1.
Yeah. I'd have to dig into that deeper. There's probably a little bit of value, but most of the time, if you make that play, you're not planning to win it, even though you have some value.
I put some chump change on it.
We're going to have to rename the Tuesday show the live betting show.
Well, the Vikings plus 125 is now minus 195 in what, a week?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting game. It's going to be a very interesting game. Jets and Bills, what up? Ugh. I'm sick of both of those teams. I can't believe they what an empty thing that they did by firing their offensive coordinator today. I mean, why? Their offense was fine. It's their defense that's crap. Yeah. They've got injuries everywhere.
Yeah, the defense, people who think that Buffalo's defense is good, they're missing the boat. Buffalo's defense is not good, and it's been continually proven by the stat sheet, by what's going on in fourth quarters, and so on and so forth. The offense is all about Josh Allen making too many mistakes, botched handoffs, throwing into coverage, trying to overdo things. This is part of Josh Allen's mentality, and you could blame the offensive coordinator if he's not coaching Allen out of it, but you can't blame the offensive coordinator for making those throws.
I agree. I mean, I just thought it was I didn't like the move, but
put up fact of the matter says, how about the Packers? The schedule says they are live, going to plug your nose sometimes. Yeah, they've got to get. Maybe they'll discover that Jordan Love is colorblind or something like that, and they can correct it or whatever. But Jordan Love just is talking about Josh Allen turnovers. Jordan Love just doesn't excite me. Sunday Night Football, Minnie and Denver. I bet about 3 or 4 weeks ago, nobody wanted that game on Sunday Night Football.
I just want to say, if it wasn't for the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens the last 2 seasons, how many of the Bills and Ravens games have come down to the very last 30 seconds or less and just tortured you and kicked sand in your face and just ruined your weekend? I mean, it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
And this week, it was both.
Yeah, there were some strange decisions made on both sides of the ball. I was listening to the game last night, and it's a function of Denver and it's a function of Baltimore. I mean Buffalo in this case. Buffalo's doing some strange things. There's no question about it. And McDermott has had a history going way back to Nathan Peterman, putting his quarterbacks into positions where they make turnovers. So I want to walk back a little bit of Josh Allen. I know he has a gambler's mentality when he throws, but Josh McDermott isn't doing these guys any favors either.
This Minnesota Denver game is going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's two teams that have hope right now. Denver, both of those teams feel like they're playoff contenders, and in the locker room, they should feel like they're playoff contenders, even if others don't feel that. So I think this is a very enthusiastic game, one that I'll study closer as the week goes on. Like that comment, New England is minus 2,100 or so to miss the playoffs. They should be minus 1,000,000.
Lay it.
Yeah. If you have discretionary money hanging around.
Lay it.
How about Monday night?
What it all boils down to is how can you not lay Pat Mahomes at home at less than a field goal is what I keep on hearing. And there's really not much of an argument to that.
I wish this game was Sunday afternoon and not standalone Monday.
Yeah.
Because I really, really would like to have Philly, but you put it in the spotlight, you put Mahomes in the spotlight. I'm more inclined to watch this game rather than wager on this game, but I'll look for matchup analysis and stuff like that. And, obviously a great Monday night game.
This is going to sound like a dumb shit comment, but I'm telling you, it fucking matters because in the beginning, it was for whatever idiotic reason, it was like a bonding thing with the team. The team was having a lot of fun with this Taylor Swift thing. And when she was there, they fucking played well. And when she wasn't, I don't know, it didn't play so well. So if she's going to be at that game, would you put a quarter point on that? Do you value that if you find out that she's not going to be there? Would you tick the box? But I also say this, at some point, that's going to turn where the team starts to get aggravated with it, and it might even do the inverse. I mean, it won't do the inverse, but you just won't see that added euphoria because you see all the players looking up at the screen and doing this and doing that. The whole team was into it. How long does that last? This is sort of like the new coach bump, and this is an absolute idiotic subject, but I think it fucking matters.
I like the comments that are coming in. Chris may have gone off the deep end with the last 90 seconds.
I'm telling you, it matters.
I'm going to leave the Jack Daniels in your cabinet, and I'll just say that Monday night and Super Bowl revenge and these teams back in play, Kansas City and Philadelphia both wanting to win, should be motivation enough.
Yeah, but you didn't answer the question, so you wouldn't consider.
I think I did answer the question. Okay. It's worth nothing.
So you don't think that their effort level went up?
Oh, I think half the players could care less. Half the, I don't know. I don't know how many of them even knew who Taylor Swift was. Yeah, I'm with Foster on that one.
So, well, we're here to entertain, and both Ron and I have done a very adequate job of making some silly comments. So,
yeah,
we like to keep you guys awake. What other words of wisdom do you have?
I think you can divide this card into half of the card being meaningless and half of the card I'm really looking forward to doing the matchup handicapping. There's some intriguing games to me on the schedule, and there's some games that I'm glad to ignore on the schedule.
Yeah, this is going to be a frustrating week to bet, though.
Few double-digit spreads, a few quarterbacks that we have to monitor as usual. What's going on? We have those teams with 3 consecutive games on the road. We have 1 game sample size of Kyler Murray. We have a 3-game sample size of Tennessee's quarterback. We don't know what's going on in Chicago. So we have the certainty with the uncertainty. So it's a really interesting slate, a minefield for handicappers. So I'm going to take my time.
I have had my fill of the Taylor Swift panning on my timeline also. Do you have any college football tonight?
No, I am behind on college football, not prepared to talk about anything about college football at the present time.
Oh, I think we took the under in Western Michigan.
Okay. Yeah, I did not handicap Tuesday, Wednesday, or actually I haven't handicapped any of the games, and I was going to skip Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday unless you had some games that you wanted me to look into.
Anything on the Sam Houston State, Western Kentucky yet?
Sorry.
All right.
I think we wrapped it up.
I've got a lot of work to do on this week still. I don't know how I want to bet a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to see where the lines move.
Mm-hmm.
I think you touched on I think people are overvaluing one game by Murray a little much, but I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to capitalize on that or not.
Yeah, we'll take our time. We'll handicap. At least we got a couple live bet opportunities into the show, so we're good. We'll have at it again on Friday. That
sounds good. So same bet channel, same bet time. I'll be on Bet US tomorrow at noon, and Friday at noon with you and Theodore. And I guess.
And if you want college content, the Wager Talk article is up, and if you want NFL content on coaches, that article will be up later today.
My contest performance has been very subpar. So, not good.
All right, sir. Until next time.
All right. I'll talk to you on Thursday again, probably, right? When are you going to have your shit together with the college?
Yeah. We'll talk Thursday afternoon.
All right. Thanks for joining, everybody.